All right, we got One and a Half Pastors podcast. We're hitting the road. We are in the exotic location of one of our members' basement. So we've got Joel Stolten out here.
Sir.
He's in the house. All right, and Pastor Dan isn't with me for this particular episode, but we've got some special guests. This is not the Joe Rogan experience, and we do not get high-powered politicians on here, but we do have winners from our recent Ribfest, and I think that's a better tier of guests than Joe Rogan has access to personally. So we've got our own member at Faith, Dave Draper, who is with us. He won the overall, and we've got Ben Evers and Nick Schofield here with us from Farm Focus, and they were the fan favorite. They won the fan favorite award, and so thanks, guys, for being here today and being part of things and joining the discussion. So I don't know, do you want to say something here, Joel, as we get started?
Yeah, I just thought it was a fun idea, and Will, honestly, I missed this, as you know, right? Mm-hmm. So I selfishly said we can debrief this, but it's got to be in my basement. We got to invite Ben, Nick, and any other winners that want to be here. So, yeah, I'm thrilled. Welcome to my basement, and y'all just sesh it up and have a good old time.
All right, thanks. So how in the world did we get here? We got here, actually, again, through Joel. He was at a golf tournament. What tournament was that? That was...
that was the Corporal Dagan Page Memorial Golf Tournament.
Oh, right, yeah.
So the fundraiser tournament, this was the third year that's put on by Dagan Page's family down in Cass County.
Yeah.
In remembrance and in honor of Dagan, one of the 13 fallen soldiers from the Afghan pullout.
Yeah.
So one of our local boys, and
it's a really cool event. I've actually
Yep.
played in it before myself.
Yep.
I just wasn't there this past year, but that's a really cool event,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that y'all got to take part in that as well.
Yep. So the way they set us up, we were doing barbecue there for the event. And we're family friends.
Were you doing the party wings?
No. Well, we did do party wings, but
Yeah.
not officially. We were just kind of handing those off, here and there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
for any of our immense fan base for this podcast.
Right.
By the way, if you look us up on iTunes, I love that One and a Half Pastors is right behind One and a Half Lesbians. I think that's really great. So we have an immense fan base. So for the fans at home, what are party wings? We gotta get the barbecue terminology.
I'll let Nick,
party ribs.
I'll let Nick talk about that because he actually introduced them to me.
Okay.
So party ribs are baby back ribs or spare ribs, whatever you want to do. But instead of the whole rack and doing the whole thing at the same time, you cut them individually the night before, season them up, and then come serving time, I think they have a better flavor because they have that flavor profile all the way around them. And so you get, instead of just the seasoning on the outside, you get a more rounded bite, and they cook like in a third of the time.
Yeah, a little quicker.
Well, I just remember the two of y'all getting there the night before, and we all had a late night, right? And y'all went into the freezer.
Yeah.
And you came out with just like a whole
We
kitchen
came
cart.
out with, we took 80 ribs, 80 racks of ribs.
I mean, 80 racks is so crazy. And then you cut them all up. You threw them in these huge coolers with all the schmeckus, all the spices and all that.
Can we tell them what the hookers?
No, I wouldn't.
No,
No, I wouldn't. No.
Okay. We had a cooler. So about midnight we finished up. So we did probably 60 racks party style, and then we did it was 11:30, and he still had to drive a half hour home, and then we were gonna meet there at 4:30.
4:30, yeah.
And so it was like, all right, let's just roll. And so we did full racks, but we didn't realize that cooler I have is 150 quarts.
Oh, wow.
And we had it couldn't have fit anymore.
Yeah.
And we couldn't even lift it by the handles because it was pulling off the side.
It was ripping.
It was
ripping the handles off.
And we had some ice in there to keep it proper and keep it health conscious. But we could barely get in the back of the truck. So,
well, y'all really helped out the event to be a success, because when we saw a line down the block, we were like, so that was actually one of our biggest fears, because this was our first ever Ribfest event, and one of our biggest fears was, what happens if we're actually successful and people show up? You know, because when you try to do something for the first time, you don't know, and y'all really helped the event to be a success, because the fact that you were able to turn out so much product really helped. but you were at the golf tournament
Yeah, so
doing that
right.
kind of stuff before, right?
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And how we came familiar with you guys. We were at the event. We were doing pulled pork for that, so we did 40 shoulders, something along those lines. And then we did some ribs just for the fun of it. We did some wings. We did random things just to hand to the golfers because they're cruising by on the turn and they're hungry and whatever. And Joel was set up directly across from us, so everyone was kind of out on the course up by the clubhouse.
Right.
And he was clearly a barbecue guy. You know, he comes over and starts talking about, what are you guys doing here? What are you doing there? Like, he's looking for tips and tricks and stuff. And we're just having barbecue chat and just kind of kicked it off and had fun with each other. And then he started talking about the, your guys' event. And I think what actually happened, to be honest, is I wasn't around. We're at the Page event. We're sitting around the smoker. We're, of course, drinking some beers. We're hanging out, having fun with folks. Nick had a few, and Joel tricked him into agreeing because later Nick comes up to me and he's like, "Oh yeah, we're doing another event next week." And I was like, "What are you talking about, man?" And he started telling me about it. And I was like, "Oh boy, here we go." So then Joel came up and started talking to me about it, and then he comes up to me with his phone.
Yeah.
And he's already signing us up. He's already got like all the information on there, and he's like, "So what email address should I put in here?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about, man?" And he's like, "Telling me about the thing, whatever." And I was like, "Okay, all right, well, we're doing it. We're in. Let's go."
Yeah. This is a thing. This is happening.
And the thing is the Page event is a 3-day golf event.
Yeah.
So we're cooking for 4 days. So we start the evening before. We cook all evening, and then we cook all day for 3 days.
Very long weekend.
Yeah. Which it's awesome. It's fun, but it's a long one. So I was like,
I love how you're like, it's a very long weekend. It's like 4 days. For most people, that's almost a whole work week. You realize that.
True.
Yeah. I remember in the Beatles, like it was a long day's night.
Yeah.
So,
Right. So needless to say, when he told me he signed us up for another thing the next weekend, I was like, all right, well, let's do it, man.
All right, this is happening.
Let's go. Yep.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Yep.
Well, it was awesome to have y'all there. And, I think one of the things that I'd like to talk about today is just how connection works and the ripple effect of connections. You're talking about Nick had a couple, and before you knew it, you were like agreeing to something. I was studying to become a pastor, and I had this professor who was from Brazil, actually. And he was inviting me over to his house for dinner. So I go over because I had studied Portuguese language. And so he asked me over. I'm trying to practice my Portuguese, and he's this Brazilian dude, right? So his wife is cooking a traditional Brazilian dish. He starts serving me shots of this Brazilian rum called cachaça, okay? So he starts serving me shots, and I'm thinking, man, I'm going to get an A in this guy's class. He loves me. He's giving me all these shots. You know what it turns out, Nick, what he was doing? He was getting me a little liquored up so he could ask me, we got a sister seminary down in Brazil. I think you should do an exchange year and go down there.
Go.
But you know what? I met my wife down
It's
there.
the gateway.
Oh, wow.
See, so
Wow.
the ripple effect of connection, right?
Yeah.
So you make one connection, then you make another connection, then you make another connection.
That's
so
pretty awesome.
I was hoping maybe we could talk a little bit about that today and how that functions. So y'all ran into Joel at the tournament, then suddenly you're at our tournament. And I think when I think about the kinds of connections that we want to make in the community, I think sometimes people talk about connection in a weird way, and the weird way, and I know marketing's part of life, but to me, guys, the weird way to make connections is just on the basis of transaction or marketing or sales. Like to me, that's a weird way to make connections.
Right.
And I'm saying that as the son of a guy who was a salesman. So my daddy was a salesman for a lot of years until he went into business for himself. So he started out as a school teacher, then he went into sales, then he went into business for himself. But when I asked my dad about sales as a young kid, because we were riding in the car, and I asked him about it, and he said, "I don't look at it that way. I look at it as an opportunity to make friends." And so when you're talking about human connection, I was wondering if y'all wanted to talk a little bit about how we make connections in the community and what's at stake in terms of making those connections, and because there's always a ripple effect. When you make one connection, you've made a second, you've made a third, you've made a fourth. But what's at stake for y'all when you think about the kinds of connections that you're trying to make in the wider community?
I mean, I guess I'll start. Excuse me. So I'm in my 40s now, and so I've been through a lot of those connections and those friends and those those business activities and those just for fun activities and those kinds of things. And I feel like one of the things that you said is what's at stake in those connections, and that's probably become more apparent to me at an older age than anything. And it's good and bad. So what's at stake? What's at stake is that, one, when we make these connections and we meet these new folks and these kinds of things, how much are we gonna divulge to them? What are they gonna think about us when they find out? And when I say us, I'm talking about my wife, because when I'm making those connections, it's a family connection. It's not just me. You know what I mean? Yeah. She came out to the event as well. She was there all day hanging out with folks and all that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So not that you necessarily have anything to hide, but are you ready to have those conversations? Are those people even comfortable enough for you to bring up those kinds of things when they see that stuff, and vice versa, same way. So I feel like a lot of the connections that we've made as we've gotten older are more surface level. Like, we have fun with these folks. It's a good time here and there. We do these things, but we don't get in deep.
Right.
Good or bad, and then we think about that. Like, should we get to know these people better? Whatever. Also, what I've learned is that over the years, having kids, the kids were what created those initial connections, because we moved a lot. So I worked a job.
Unpack that a little bit. What do you mean you moved? Like, what caused that you were moving a lot?
Yeah, so I worked a corporate job that moved us around to different territories.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like a military style, if you were to think about it, and how we were moving to these different territories. But we'd get to these different areas and go to work, and what created the connections for us was our kids being involved in the school, the sports, whatever it is, and that's how we met people. And a lot of it did kind of stay on the surface. So I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm just saying, like, the kids have been so critical for us in making new connections and connecting with folks. And then where I'll end it and let you guys go is, Nick sitting right here. This has been one of my buddies since kindergarten, before. I don't know what.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, what's the connection here?
So I think on his mom's fridge in her kitchen, she has a picture of him and I playing soccer, and I think we're 4.
Yeah.
Right, and so, but like all the time, like I've never left Papillion or Bellevue.
Okay.
And so like he moved to Texas, Tennessee, Minnesota, and I'm always just the kind of like, we always just kept in touch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like always. Like,
and it's always been,
and we went to different high schools.
Yeah.
I went to one on one side of town, he went to another one, and like,
we did. That's right. Yep. And it's always been one of those connections where, like, we can always come back to it, no matter what.
It just picks right up.
Pick it back up.
Yeah, no matter what.
It can be 6 months.
And I guarantee you, him and his wife, me and my wife, there's probably been conversations, about the other person, like, that freaking guy, man, he does this, he does that, whatever. And you're just like, what? It doesn't matter.
Right.
That guy can do no wrong.
Yeah.
Ever. Like, we're going to be together forever.
Right.
And that's just one of those that we're very fortunate to have. Not a lot of people have that.
Yeah. I think about sometimes in life, you think you have a certain number of friends, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't know until the stuff hits the fan what those people's metal is really made of, and what you mean to them. And so it's sometimes difficult moments in life that teach you, well, I thought this person was a friend. Maybe they're more of like a we go to the bar kind of buddy, or we play golf kind of buddy.
Yep.
And then the stuff hits the fan. Is no, this person's actually a friend, and I can count on them in a way, like y'all are talking about, like, always be there. I got to ask though, like, you lived in Tennessee for a while?
That's right. Yep.
Where?
Outside of Knoxville.
Where outside of Knoxville?
Farragut was the town.
Farragut. I know.
We were just outside of Farragut, actually, but West Knoxville.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm from Nashville originally.
Okay.
And I went to school at the University of Tennessee.
Yep.
So I definitely know down Thunder Road towards Farragut. A lot of people don't know Kingston Pike is actually Thunder Road.
Yep. That's the main thoroughfare we took.
You're welcome, all the NASCAR fans. You're welcome for that reference. But
Tennessee was awesome, man. We lived there for almost 5 years, and you talk about those connections. We made a lot of really good connections that still today. It's been, gosh, when did we leave there? It would have been 2014, 2015, somewhere in that range. So 10 years. Still folks I talk to down there that again, we'd pick right up where we left off. I love those
Yeah.
people, man.
Dave, what do you think? Like when you're thinking about the connections you make in the wider community, like what's at stake for you?
Well, I mean, I'm going to kind of piggyback off what Ben was talking about here with the children,
Right.
because I
Yeah.
mean, I've made a lot of friends through William, my son, who goes to school with Sam, Joel's kiddo, and through my wife, and all of her friends. So, I mean, it's kind of amazing on how you can go from zero to being involved with a friend group of my wife or my children's, and just kind of build friendship from there. And to kind of go off what you were saying with the people that you call that maybe I've heard the term 3 a.m. friend.
Yeah, right.
Those are the people that you can call at 3 a.m. with something like, "Hey,
I murdered a guy.
exactly, I murdered a guy."
No, not
we're
that.
buried.
No.
And we got to go find out where we're going to hide the body.
Yeah.
No.
There you go. Yeah, no,
No,
not that.
that's the bad
Yeah,
side. But no, I mean, those are the relationships that you can build over time, and
Right.
it's not something that you can just walk into and go, "Hey, you're my new 3 a.m. friend." That's going to take time. That's going to take a relationship. That's going to take almost like intimate conversation over, like, how you were raised, what you did, what you do, how your beliefs, your values. Those take time.
So you talk about the kids; they can walk up to each other if they're young enough and just say, "Are we friends now?" Yeah, we're friends. Yeah,
Right.
which is great.
And
And
then
you
they-
can do that as a kid. I think the older you get, because y'all were like on the same soccer team at like, what'd you say, 4?
Yep.
And so you just walked up and said, "Are you my friend?" And it's like, "Yeah, I'm your ride or die. This
Yeah,
is it." Right?
yeah.
And you can do that as a little kid. I think as you get older, you end up weirdly dating friends. Like you get, like
Right.
you're saying, like get to
Yeah.
know people, and you have to like. Isn't that weird though? The way
kinda,
that changes.
It's kind of interesting. I'm an IT guy, so
Okay.
I'm kind of introverted. I'm kind of nerd and everything, so it makes it even harder. So
Yeah.
like it's just interesting when you get involved with new relationships and how you have to build them, and
Right.
the amount of work it takes to actually build a good relationship. So
Right.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Or maybe if you're just wrenching on something together.
oh
So you made some new connections at the Ribfest
Yeah.
because we're all talking Q.
right, definitely.
And then
Definitely.
you're like, the way that we set everybody up was on top of each other, which, by the way, fellas, was risky. I noticed y'all put a little distance. I didn't know if that was
No.
because of the size of your rig or
Because
because
we didn't need power.
you didn't need power. Because you know what I was wondering? I didn't know if you didn't want other people to know about your spice recipe. You know what I mean? Because people can get a little touchy around
it was not even that. We just
around
pulled
the
up, we're like,
technique,
"Hey,
you know?
Where do you want us?
Yeah.
They're like, well,
Yeah.
you don't need power. Park
Okay.
over here.
Okay, I was wondering because you never know because
Yeah.
if it's in competition because we had judges and stuff, right?
definitely.
Right.
It was intimidating as
Yeah.
all get out. I mean, because my buddy Nate and I were like, we're just backyard, friends.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
good buddies and everything. And we see you guys roll up, and we're like, yep, it's that. Oh boy, that's it.
To give a
That's
little
it.
bit of context, Nick and I have never done a competition.
Not together.
Yeah, he's done a couple. I've
done a
never
couple.
I've never done one. And we
But
haven't
when
done
y'all
one
roll
joint.
up with that rig, you're just there to like just hang out and feed people.
That's
Yeah.
it, man. Yeah.
No, it's just him and I bought it. I don't know.
just for the fun of it, man. It
February.
sounded
Yeah.
fun.
Like
Yeah.
we haven't made a dime. We don't do anything
Yeah.
other than this constructive. But like, it's just fun to bring people together.
That's
Food
outstanding.
is where it's at.
That's great.
and that is a great thing. Like, I bring it to baseball tournaments, and I'll fire it up all day for the whole weekend. And I'm like, hey, you teams from Chicago, Missouri,
Yeah.
Texas, bring whatever, throw it on, right? Like, it's gonna be rolling.
And I just
Let's go.
appreciate that that's your approach because you know the song, right? You can't eat at everybody's house. You know that song?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't eat at everybody's house, right? But if you know how to cook, right, and you can bring people together
Exactly.
over tasty food, that's the way that it goes. So, but what I think is so interesting about that is that y'all's friendship is what it is outside of something like this kind of event. But then you just have this desire to bring people together. Mm-hmm. So when we think about connection, there's the connection that's an interpersonal or personal connection. And then there's whether or not you are the kind of person that's wired in such a way to where you like to sort of be a clearinghouse. You like to see other people connect because you were in the room. And that's that's a weird thing when you think about it. I mean, think about this with me. That's a weird thing because some people walk into a room and it's like they're trying to like look at me, or am I cool enough to be in this room or whatever. And then there's people who walk in the room, and because they're there, other connections are going to happen. Mm-hmm. And the way that y'all's friendship is I mean, I hate to sound kind of psychological about it, but like it's secure enough to where you're walking into a space and other people are now finding a connection because you happen to be there. Yeah. I don't know, like if you've reflected on that before, if you're just being you and it just sort of happens. But
yeah, no, that's not something I've really given a lot of thought to, but
yeah,
definitely. I think what you're talking about is kind of portrays a level of comfort, and like this, like this, what we're doing right here, this is unknown, like we come over here, we don't know this neighborhood, we don't know this town, we don't know you guys that well.
Right. Yep.
I don't feel weird at all in a way because I come walking in here with Nick because I know, me and him, it's like,
right.
I'm comfortable. I'm with my dude.
Yeah.
And then I also can tell that you guys are good guys as well. But as you said, I mean, it kind of plays a little bit to that.
Well, what I want to know is which one of you is Wyatt Earp and which one of you is Doc Holliday. That's what I need to know.
I honestly don't know.
So he, no,
You're going to answer this. You're going to answer this. Okay.
So
yeah,
and his wife made a perfect post last week.
Yeah,
like a meme about a dude just being super calm and super chill. That's Wyatt Earp. Yeah, and like that'd be him.
Okay,
big,
right.
Tall, lengthy feller.
Yeah,
and then sometimes I shoot from the hip. Get us into trouble.
That's true.
It happens.
So you're Doc. All right,
Doc
there you
for
go.
Sure. Yeah, you got it.
I came interrupting. Hey, Joel.
You're not interrupting.
Well, I own the place, so I thought maybe I could hop in. This is a really simple point, but I think it's rather profound. I've noticed that a lot of times the real relationship happens when you're doing something else. And you kind of reference that about wrenching on something. Mm-hmm. But and that's not just about relationships. There's a quote that rarely, if you set out to find happiness, and that's your only goal, like I am going to be happy, and you work for it and you think about it, that doesn't actually make you happy. Right. You find happiness while you do other things. And I think there's something similar there with relationships. I think really good relationships happen actually while you're doing something in common, shared values. And maybe that's different for guys too. I think some of that is like we don't need to, here's Will with his PhD talking about, psychology and feelings and all this stuff. Yeah. But he's also good with Q and knows his bourbon. He's plenty masculine. Let's not get that wrong. But I do think sometimes for guys it's easier to do something together and then boom, it happens really fast. And that's a cool thing. I think that's the way God built us. I think that's really amazing. But I just want to make that point. Like I think it happens while something else is happening. And you can't just set out to do it or you'll never get it. It'd be kind of elusive.
Yeah, and I think to your point as well, like as much as dudes, so many of them, and I do the same thing, want to act like, I'm independent, I'm a tough guy, I can do my thing, I can handle this on my own, whatever. Kind of where this started, you're talking about this community and these connections. You come back to that, and that is probably really where we find our strength. Like we have enough of our strength to go for a little while on our own, but we have to pull from some of these other folks, some of these connections that we have to keep that going in a really good way, in a really positive way, in an effective way. At least that's for myself, and that's where those connections come in.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of maybe an interesting kind of turn here to the discussion. What do you see going on with masculinity, maybe in your circles? That because we're touching on it now, right? What does it mean to be a dude, to be a guy? You said we oftentimes think about, well, we got to go it alone, and maybe that's not actually accurate. Maybe there's another way to think about.
Yeah.
What do you see going on out there today as you're looking at relationships and how guys are trying to make it today? Maybe just in your circles here in Nebraska.
Thank you.
Is there a way we can go down that rabbit hole for a minute?
No, I think it's a great conversation. For me, just masculinity in general, and we could speak about that for hours. But I think it has a very important role in so many things that we do. And I think there's a lot of forces that are trying to suppress that, and then there's a number of them out there that are trying to promote it and its healthy aspects. Again, just reflecting on my age and just kind of the things that I've done and where I'm at today, it feels like at this particular age, and again, I'm just a little over 40, so many guys that I know, and maybe you call it like a midlife crisis or whatever it is, are just trying to not redefine themselves, but maybe define themselves in their own mind, this is who I am, this is what I do, I'm still this, I'm still good, I'm still, I can still accomplish this, I can still do these things,
Is this where we insert the joke about like at midlife you need to make a decision, either you become a Civil War history buff or you learn how to barbecue?
That,
Is this where we insert that joke?
yeah.
Just so that everybody at home can just get that out of the way, and then we'll move on from there. Yeah. So y'all chose Q, which is a good choice.
Right,
Yeah. I did too. So that's
Yeah, well, truth be told, we've been doing barbecue since we were probably 14 years old.
We do cars and bikes.
Yeah,
but growing up, we had big trucks and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that used to be the jam, and now it's barbecue and
But
family.
But
and that's the thing. Yeah, and I think,
joking aside, like you're actually you're hitting on something here. At a certain point in your life, you got to reevaluate a couple things.
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah, and I think what, at least for myself, what I'm discovering, and a lot of people that I know is, the masculinity piece is extremely important. But this isn't about like this, beating your chest, being the tough guy kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's the leading by example. It's doing the right things. It's having those relationships, that Nick and I have. We both have sons, displaying those best behaviors to our sons. I think what a lot of people would not off the bat think about that relationship with your wife. What are you displaying to your children with that? Sometimes that feels like something that you don't talk a lot about, or we don't kiss each other in front of the kids or whatever. Like, no, we do, and we display this, and this is part of the masculinity. This is part of taking care of the household. It's not that there's all these things that she can't do, because there is all these things that she can't do or that she can do, but it's that I'm doing the things that she wants me to do, the things that I'm best at, and displaying that to our children. I think it's so freaking important, and it's talked down so often.
Unpack that a little bit. What do you mean when you say it's talked down? What are you hearing?
For me, it's it's just the stuff that you're hearing on the news, on the radio, on whatever. The guys shouldn't be doing this. They shouldn't be doing that. This is a bad guy over here. He yelled at this person, or he did whatever these things that he did. You hear all this stuff, all this static, and you have to figure out how to weed through that. And that's really tough, because there's a lot of it out there. So you have to figure out what's real, what's basically clickbait, what's being used just to get, follows and whatever. And what is really going to have that, because in the end, for me, masculinity is, making sure that my family's taken care of, and making sure that the ones that are coming after me are prepared in a proper way.
There's a sense in which masculinity includes the idea of legacy for you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
All right.
and I think that's where it's changed in the recent years, like masculinity, and like our generation, like him and I are very self-sufficient. And or you could call it cheap. I don't know. Like we try to figure things out, do everything our own, and like it's pulling nails for me, at least, to get somebody to come over and fix my fridge or do anything. Like, I'm not a plumber, I'm not an electrician, whatever. But I think the newer,
do you barter?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
But like
I love the barter system. Like, I'm a big fan.
But I love, like, before I was in the industry I'm in, like, I was doing cars. And so, like, some people are like, oh, yeah, man, I had a bad day today. I took my car into Firestone, and it's going to be $1,000. And I'm like, bring that thing over. We'll have a beer.
Right.
And I'll do it for $100.
But wait a minute, Nick. Now you're in danger of making a new connection because you're wrenching on something together. So
well, if Nick, if you want to dig in with Nick,
yeah,
and he would be honest about what he was doing, that's exactly what he's doing.
Right.
Because Nick is one of those dudes that every chance he gets, he's making those connections.
Right. I want to go back to something you said though, Ben, about the static and how you filter that. Do you have like a personal standard that you're trying to put stuff that you hear or see up against that helps you to filter? Like how do you think about that process of filtering out the static? Because there is, we've all got these like I call them anxiety rectangles, right? And we've got them on us at all times, right? So how do you think about that actual give me the X's and O's is what I'm asking you, Ben. Give me the X's and O's to how you actually filter all that stuff. Is there a standard you're putting stuff up against? Like, what are you doing?
Man, I hadn't really thought a whole lot about it until you just said that, and I don't have like this guidebook, like these guidelines. Like if it hits this mark, it's this. If it hits this mark, it's this. I for some reason feel, and it's always worked well for me, that I've just got a really good BS filter. So when I see that stuff and I hear it, I'm always thinking about like, what are these people saying and what are they trying to accomplish? For me, it's more about intent.
Right.
So when I hear something from someone, I'm thinking less about what they're actually saying and more about what their intent is.
Right.
So I guess that would probably be my main filter.
Okay.
So when I hear that stuff on the radio or on TV or whatever, I'm thinking about what are these people's intent? Are they just trying to get somebody to click on something? Are they trying to make, manipulate somebody in some way, trying to influence somebody in some way because they prefer this direction? Or are they just really being honest and just putting it out there? And I guess that would be my main filter, really.
I think it's funny that you're talking about like what is the intent there, because when we talk about again connection, there's a difficulty in getting past the transactional. When you talked a little bit earlier about a lot of your connections may remain on the surface. Why? Because it's not going to go deeper than the transactional. And so when you talk about a BS filter, when you talk about what is this person's intent, you're talking about can anything that's going on right now ever hope to go past the transactional? Because in other words, what does this person really want? And it's not me, man. Right? Like I'm listening to somebody talk. It's not they don't want me in any kind of real way or a friendship with me or a whatever, And what they want for themselves isn't even something substantial necessarily. It could be as simple as money. And this kind of sounds like a preacher, but I am a preacher. Hi. So I can say that like money's not substantial. Like you need it because it's like a tool or it's like a roof that keeps the rain off your head. So you need a certain amount of it, which is fine. That's great. Yep. But like money is not itself actually substantial. Yep. It is transactional
right.
by its very nature.
Yep.
It comes and it goes. So I think it's interesting that you're kind of pointing that out when you're talking about somebody's intent and trying to think about what is this person actually after, and is what they're after, does that go any deeper than the surface? And a lot of times the answer is frankly no.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it seems like when it comes to like news and things like that, more often than not, it's not any deeper than that.
It's like really hard when somebody, I think, gets confronted with the fact that most media, and I'm not just talking about legacy media, I'm talking about even about social media, because you're talking about clickbait, right? So that's social media.
Absolutely, yeah.
That most media is actually about trying to sell you airspace, or like ad time. And when people don't know that because they grew up maybe in like the Walter Cronkite generation, and they're like, they think of that talking head on TV as like a trusted, a trusted source of information, right? And when you first try to lay out for them, they're selling ad time, right? Like that's essentially what this is about. It's hard for some people to wrap their heads around that space because they didn't want to believe that was a transactional thing that was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of uncovering whatever agenda that they're trying to pass on to you or make you believe in. So sometimes the agenda is pretty hidden and it takes a little bit to uncover. Sometimes it's just right out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the agenda is not always bad.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
sometimes it's a good agenda.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
a wholesome and
Someone has
beneficial.
something to share with you that
Yeah.
they want you to be a part
Sometimes
of.
you just need Ron Burgundy to read the news, right?
That's it.
We want to read
Yeah.
the news. I
Yeah.
want somebody to be
Yeah.
straight with me. I'll be straight with you,
Right.
and that's how it should be.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I think I sympathize with that question of, is there a good sort of, so it's not always like a malicious intent that somebody's got.
Correct.
There can be, and I really resonate with that because I'm a preacher.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And here's the problem with being a preacher. Somebody could be a preacher and have a really good intention, and somebody could be a preacher and have a really bad intention. But when you listen to them in a pulpit, it may not be immediately obvious on the surface what that intention is. And that makes it really, really difficult. So when you talk about messaging, but when we think about the kinds of connections that we're making, what I want to know is, and maybe this is kind of a transplants question, but you've lived lots of places, and then you've always been around Papillion, and Dave, I actually don't know. Like, this is, I'm embarrassed. You're a member at our church, and I don't know how often have you moved around, or is this kind of home for you?
This
or?
is home for me. I grew up here in Lincoln, Northeast Lincoln. So
Okay.
didn't move very far.
Okay.
Joined the military. Did a lot of moving with the military.
Okay, sure.
And then I came back here.
Okay.
And then here I
Because
am
it's
now.
God's country. You got to come back.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, you got-
I mean, I was West Coast Navy. So, I mean, I got to see some really cool places. But,
sure.
man,
Were you out of San Diego for a
I
while?
was out of San Diego. Yep.
Did you do drinks and apps on Coronado?
I lived in Coronado for about year and a half.
Dave,
2
I want you
years
to know
before I moved out.
that deep in my soul, I still love you and Jesus loves you, but I hate you.
Right,
I want
I
you
know,
to
right?
understand that you got to
Coronado.
sit out there with the sunshine tax and
All the
your
time.
windows open all day.
All the
and
time.
Just perfect weather.
That's great.
So you've been around, and you've been around, and you're my source for Midwest information here too. Maybe as a transplant, I'm asking what works in this area in terms of making those connections and helping things to go past the surface. Because sometimes, you know, I'm from down south, and I think the natives here are really, really super friendly. But sometimes there are some little cultural differences that you don't think are so big, and all of a sudden I feel like they jump up and they bite me in the rear end. So what works for y'all in terms of helping to build relationships and to make connections and to help those connections go beyond the surface to something a little bit deeper?
Do you have anything you want to start with?
I would say, like, the last topic of masculinity is the first, you know, just being a little vulnerable, you know, and
Yeah.
saying, hey, I'm coming in. I'm not from here. I don't know everything. You know, maybe, like, we have some friends that didn't grow up hunting and fishing like we did. You know, they want to get into it later on, and it's like you have to open yourself up a little bit, I think.
In the spirit of opening yourself up a little bit, can I tell you like the worst, most embarrassing hunting story that I have from living
Absolutely.
here in Nebraska? Can I share that with you? All right. This is bad. Like, when I say this is bad, like, I mean this is bad. All right.
All right, we're ready.
So I got a buddy in the congregation, and he wanted it. So I got this southern accent, and I show up, and I'm from Nashville. It's like the home of country music, and everybody thinks that I grew up hunting and fishing. I grew up in a city, guys. Like, Nashville's a city, you know. So I didn't grow up hunting and fishing, right? So this guy wants to take me out hunting. I'm like, I'm excited about it. I'm like, yeah, I actually want to learn this, right? So we go out. I get my tags and everything with state, and we go out there. And then it's time to take a little break, and we go over to, I don't even know if it's still open, the Ding-a-Ling over in Raymond.
Raymond, Nebraska.
Yeah, is the Ding still open? Okay, all right. Shout out to the Ding.
Little plug.
Yeah, little plug. Send me like a free hamburger or like a ticket or something. Anyway, so we went over to the Ding-a-Ling over in Raymond to get some lunch, right? And I walk in, and I take off some of my gear and stuff. Okay, now I told you this is bad. All right, I told you on the front end this is
Are you
bad.
bird hunting or?
No, we're deer hunting.
Okay.
Yeah, we're deer hunting, and so we go to get a little bit of lunch. We've been out there since before the sun came up, and I just cannot stress how bad this is because I didn't realize Okay, so we walk in and like I'm starting to take off the gear, because I don't want to be sweating inside this bar while I'm trying to eat a hamburger. And I take off some of my gear, and underneath all my gear, my buddy spots, and I'm not making this up, and I wish I were making this up, a plaid, like a Scottish type plaid cashmere scarf that I was wearing, wrapped up underneath all this hunting gear. 100% pure cashmere scarf.
I like cashmere.
I like cashmere. Here's the problem. It's the only thing I own because I grew up in a city is cashmere scarf. Like I wear it with a jacket like I've got on right now, right? So and so I walk into the Dingaling in Raymond, Nebraska with this cashmere scarf hanging out, and they didn't have a jukebox that could skip. But Dave, I'm telling you, if they had a jukebox that could skip, it'd be like, as I walked in the door. So that's my. And I embarrassed my buddy in the middle of the ding. I was glad we didn't get into a bar fight in the middle of the day.
It's like Howard Hughes walking into the bar.
Yeah, I know. Like I looked completely out of place. I had to just throw it over my shoulder with the scarf.
I actually bought a pair of cashmere leather gloves one time, and it was a bad story, but they've been the best gloves over the last 20 years.
It's because it's comfortable, man. It's really
with,
good wool.
With leather on the outside,
it's like
it's legit, for sure.
I know, but that's
it's not only for your wives.
You're right, yeah.
I
don't know about that.
Idea.
I don't think I'm going to be caught in it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I think
masculinity.
Right, yeah.
And that's a side story too, because we on our podcast we talk a lot about hunting and fishing, just random episodes.
Sure.
And I feel like the wear, the hunting wear,
the gear, gear
has just gone over the top, man. Like people need to just chill out. Like what works. It's not that big of a deal. We're going out.
I have a theory. I want y'all to try out this theory with me. I've never said this in public. This is the first time.
All right.
Here. So let's just say it into the internet of things.
Yep.
Okay. So this is my big theory. So we've had, and I mean this again as a pastor. I think it's unfortunate that we've had 30 years of straight warfare as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish that we could take a little different tack there. I know that sounds like a preacher, but again, I am a preacher. So I understand there's a time and place for war. There absolutely is a time and place for war, but I think 30 years of war is probably, we need to take a different tack. So that's my personal opinion. But I think after about 30 years of warfare, and we've seen so many guys that served, they signed up after 9/11, they went over there, they did their best, they came home. I really do think with this gear question, it's a side effect of having so many veterans today.
Yeah.
Because they got used to kit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they got used to kit. Because it's all about your gear and making sure your gear is all in order and all this.
Yeah.
Used to, and again, to the Nebraska Fish and Wildlife people, I am not condoning this at all. But, used to, guys would go out, in a pickup truck, am I wrong? And, night sight something and shoot it out the window, right? That doesn't take gear.
People do that.
Right? That's
Ish.
Yeah. Ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you don't need kit. You don't need gear to do that, but it becomes almost like a fetish item that these guys have to have all this this kit and gear.
I think it's as you just grow older, you're trying to bring back your glory days.
Right.
And it's, back in the day, when I started duck hunting when I was 4.5. And, we were poor, had a metal bucket with some briquettes in it and, froze my butt off in that duck blind, but learned the best lessons there.
Yeah.
About patience and just
making stuff work.
Yeah, making stuff work.
You and I grew up very similarly. You grew up with those coals in the bucket, learning how to duck hunt, and I grew up with an early Nintendo set that had Duck Hunt on it.
I had Duck Hunt too.
You did.
But that was the last game system that I've ever had.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I didn't go past Nintendo either. Actually, at my house,
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think so. Originally, what you were talking about was in this area.
Yeah.
How do you break through there and make those connections? I guess was kind of part of the question.
Yeah, what works?
Yeah.
Again, I'm looking for X's and O's here. What works?
Man. Yeah. So for me, what I would say is it's being genuine. Mm-hmm. And it's staying the course, I guess is the best way to explain it. So the bottom line is, and this is again what I've found out, as I get older, when I meet folks, I'm going to be who I'm going to be. Like when I leave here, you guys are either going to be like, he seems like a pretty good dude, I'd like to hang out with him again, or you're going to be like, man, that guy said a couple of things, and
he's a tool.
And I honestly don't care.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I've gotten to that point where it's like it doesn't matter to me. Like I'm not interested in earning everyone's praise or whatever, acceptance.
Right.
I do want to be friends with them. Why wouldn't I want to be friends with them? But
sure.
I'm going to be who I'm going to be. And when you do that, I think that genuineness comes through.
Oh, yeah.
And I think for folks in the Midwest, again, it goes back to that BS filter that I was talking about earlier. I've been working with farmers for years. So that's where my business is at. These dudes know almost as soon as you're driving down the driveway, before you even get out of your truck, if you are the real deal or not. Yeah. And it's not just because all the different things you're displaying. It's just like that there's something going on there with folks in the Midwest that we can sense it.
Yeah,
we can sense it.
Smell it a mile down the road.
Yeah, right. So it's to me, it's just you're not gonna don't try to trick it.
Right.
Just be who you're gonna be.
Right.
And eventually, like your tribe or your group or whatever the terms are that everyone likes to use nowadays. Right. You're gonna find each other.
You find your people.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And for those who aren't your people, they can have different, but they can't have better. How you like them apples?
Yep.
Ben Evers says you can have different than me, but you can't have better. There you go.
And it ain't even that, honestly. Like I know that we're joking around, but people, if there's some other group or whatever, something else that you want to do that's more fun and you more enjoyable and whatever, do it, man. Do it. Like we're to that point in life, as we get to these ages where it's like all of the interactions that we have and the time that we spend, again, coming out here today, we're an hour from you guys. We come out here, you put everything together. It's a 4 or 5 hour deal. It's like that's a commitment.
Right.
So is it worth it? Is it, are we going to have fun? Are we going to make connections? Like you said,
right.
Is it going to have a positive effect on anybody?
Right.
Those kinds of things. So those are the things that I'm thinking about in my mind. And I 100% believe that just be yourself, man. And in the Midwest, that's going to come through.
Cool.
People are going to love you or hate you. And it is what it is.
Well, guys, this was a trip for you. And I really appreciate y'all making the trip, making the time. Because that's a gift. I mean, you had to commit to that. And I think we're going to maybe kind of wrap up the discussion here. And again, we have a massive fan base. But typically our podcasts are not Rogan length. Okay, so but we're gonna wrap it up here. But guys, thank you so much for making the commitment, coming out. Dave, thanks for coming out as part of your Miss USA tour as the winner with the tiara, the crown. You got the
fan favorites though.
Fan favorites, and we're gonna see who takes home the trophy next year because we're gonna do this again, guys. I'm gonna ask you on air.
Yep.
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna ask you on air right now. I want to know the commitment.
I told them.
Are you
earlier,
gonna come back out next year?
I told
for
them
Ribfest?
earlier just a couple days ago. I'm like, they're sinking their hooks into us.
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit.
No, but we had total fun and we're in for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, right. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, guys.
Last thing, if I could say.
Sure, yeah.
We're going to put this on our podcast as well. We're going to broadcast it out to the common folk is what we call it. So if anybody in the common folk nation that listens that's not familiar with you guys, where can they find your guys' podcast?
Just go on iTunes and search for 1.5 Pastors, and that's what you find us under. Yeah.
Awesome. I've listened to a couple preparing for this because Joel had told me about it.
Okay.
And I've enjoyed it. I think you guys do a great job. So we appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys having us out, affiliating with us.
Where can we find your podcast?
So ours is the same deal on any podcast platform. It's called Common Folk.
Common Folk.
Yep. Nice. So if you look it up, everyone's got the little the thumbnail.
Yeah.
So the thumbnail's like 3 colors, like red, green, gray, blue, whatever. You'll see it. You can't miss it. It's got our 3 beautiful faces.
So Common Folk. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.